Tonight's game against Kansas State is 1,000% a must-win game for Scott Drew and the Bears. Let's get Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas, and it is Wicker Wednesday. Sydney Wicker, welcome back. Welcome back to the fray. We have switched from football, the endless football season, to now the end of it, and to basketball. How does it feel to be a little bit more indoors?
It's nice, especially with how chilly it is outside right now. That little bit of snow we got on the ground this week, it's been a little chilly for Texas, but
yeah, I was gonna say those of us in the Chicago bureau are not throwing as much sympathy, but sure, yeah.
I know, but for Texas, it's a big deal around here. I left the snow behind for a reason, so
how are the roads?
Glad it's over. Honestly, not bad at all.
Okay,
they were.
That's the main concern with Texas.
Yeah, they were good this afternoon, so. I'd say good.
Sick 'em.
I've got 4-wheel drive though, but I think it's good.
Meanwhile, there's me 5 years ago in like my 2005 Accord trying to get to the Fox 44 station. I guess it was 4 years ago in the Snowmageddon. 3-minute commute to work every day, except during that. That was pins and needles, white knuckling, and I was the closest one. So I was there all the time when other reporters couldn't get there. So that was a ton of fun. But that's enough about me. It's getting cold in Texas, and also cold right now, the Baylor basketball team. That's what we call a segue. Coming off back-to-back losses, and I said the worst loss of the season on Sunday. Now, I can be dramatic. So, Sydney, you were there.
Don't say, Cam.
I've been known to be dramatic before. You were in the Foster Pavilion on Sunday. How did that feel? Feel like the worst loss of the season?
The worst so far, I would say. You could just feel it was not good.
Yes, the worst so far. It can always get worse.
I hope it doesn't. But when people have asked me about this season, it's just so hard to not say underwhelming. There were so many high expectations. This is such a veteran, experienced, great, talented group. And my question has been, what is it that's not clicking? You have all of the fundamental pieces. Everybody is so vastly talented. There's so many guys you could see play in the league next year. It's crazy. So why is that not translating right now? That's just been my biggest takeaway. I can't pinpoint exactly what's missing from this team, but it seems like there's a piece that's not clicking right now. You have this group went up so big against TCU. They were so hot in that first half of the game. They looked good. And then all of a sudden they come out flat. They let TCU hang around, and then they let TCU take the lead, and then we know how the shot came down, and it's just how do you let that happen? And so it's just been really frustrating. I think this team's starting to feel that frustration. I think we saw a lot of that from VJ specifically after the game, and then, of course, this week in practice.
And so now it makes for tonight's game to be massive. It's always, some pomp and circumstance when it's Jerome Tang against Scott Drew. That is a 3-0 record for Jerome against his old boss. Since he went to Kansas State, they have not cracked the code against Jerome Tang. And this one becomes a huge deal. I would even call this thing a must-win tonight. I think this is a must-win game for Baylor. And we're going to take a look at kind of the overarching problems with this team and the look ahead in the next segment. But for this one tonight, it's not just us, not just Sydney and I putting on some of the pressure for this game. This is coming from within the locker room as well.
The approach has been different. You can feel the vibe in the arena. You can feel the intensity. So like I said, we just gotta, now we're down Jeremy. So we just gotta be more connected. We have to be more connected, and we have to win games. And like I said, it starts in practice, because what we practice, how we practice, how we gonna play. It's not just gonna change right away. So, yeah.
It was a wake-up call for sure. I want to say, I won't say we needed it because I feel like we needed the win more than the wake-up call. But obviously we learned a lot from that game. And, hopefully what we learned, it just translates and we go on a little stretch of like a little win streak, So, to answer your question, I'm not sure we needed the wake-up call, but we for sure learned from it 100%.
Things kind of getting added on here. Obviously, the pressure against this game or against this Kansas State team, which has been scuffling, but kind of made a game out of it against Kansas on Saturday. You think Baylor needs a win. This Kansas State team really needs a win. And now you heard it in there. Scott Drew has not officially ruled out Jeremy Roach, but it sounds like Baylor's ready to play without him in this game tonight. Let's just start it here, Sydney. How big a game is this for Baylor's season right now?
You said must win. Another word that VJ used in that presser was mandatory. This has to be done. Like, it's not something that you can skip past. An answer needs to be given today. It's not optional. You have to do something because now you're getting to the point where it's like, is this even a team that can make a run in the tournament? Is this even a team that can play in the tournament? That's starting to become the question and the buildup that these guys are carrying on their back. So how do you respond? That's going to be the answer tonight. We'll see.
And it's interesting you say that last part because some people have reached out to me and said I'm crazy for thinking that, but they're not a tournament team right now.
No.
And we look at, we kind of dump on Utah or BYU and some of their struggles. And they're the same record as you. And they have basically the same resume as you. Right now, Baylor has a win over one Power 4, Power 5 tournament team in St. John's. That's it. Right. Yeah. And Kansas State is really teetering. They don't have expectations to make the NCAA tournament right now. But if they go and they beat Baylor on the road, it almost doesn't matter how underwhelming Baylor's been. That's a big win for a team like Kansas State. And it's not good juju going their way. So before we close the book on this, Sydney will be there. Boss Pavilion, Baylor, Kansas State, not having Jeremy Roach in the lineup. Who in your eyes really needs to step up?
That's
tonight's
tough. Yeah, I think it's tough because I think we've seen Norchad step up already. VJ is just really reliable at this point. So I think it's going to have to be Jaden Nunn, maybe?
That's a fair pick. Nunn is, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know what more you can ask Norchad to do. The guy's right there getting the rebounds. He's 17 away from being in the top I think he's one of only 13 NCAA players that will have 2,000 rebounds or something in his career. So he's right on the cusp of another record. So I just don't know what more you can ask out of him. And VJ, he's just been really consistent to me. So it's going to be consistency from everybody else. So I feel like it's got to maybe be Nunn. Celestine's still limited in his minutes, so we'll see him, but I don't know how much you can ask for while he's still in this recovery period. And then I know you mentioned a little bit on Roach. Coach used the word doubtful for him so far, so that's definitely not something that you want to hear.
It usually means out.
Yep. Usually means out. I just don't think they want to say it, but
yeah. And it's probably, I'm no doctor, but probably trying to figure out the severity of this thing is typically what that leans towards. So why are we being so dire with this Baylor basketball team? We will try to diagnose exactly why when Locked On Baylor returns. This message is brought to you by Prize Picks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Now it's playoff time. There's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players, and if that pick hits, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right. 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. So riddle me this. Ready to run your game this playoff season? Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. Back here in Locked On Baylor, Cam Stewart, Sydney Wicker, Channel 6 Sports. Baylor basketball. People outside of us or outside of the kind of this Baylor sphere think that the Baylor people are overreacting. I just don't think that we're at that point yet. Like, we're in kind of panic mode, but I don't think this is an overreaction. The good news is there's plenty of time to turn this around. But Sydney, we talked a little bit about it at the top of the show. It's almost tough to kind of pinpoint what the exact issue is, which usually means there's several.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
It happens. Look, it happens.
It does. It does. Injuries obviously have just plagued this team in so many ways, and it's hard when you have so many guys who you can't rely on for the full time. When you're looking at people who are limited and you can only have this guy in for about half of the game or only for 10 minutes in the first half and maybe 15 in the second, that's not good. You need to be healthy. And right now, I think that's one of the biggest issues. I think there's a mental hurdle within this team too that nobody's talking about. I don't know what it is. Nobody wants to say what it is, but you can see that something's not clicking overall, which makes me think there's more, but injuries being the most obvious that we're seeing.
I want to push back on the injuries thing a bit, but let's see how not in a bad way, Sydney, don't worry. But let's see how Scott Drew and his players are talking about that and how much of a hurdle that is for this team in Big 12 play.
Yeah, I mean, having Roach go down, you guys, everyone knows who Jeremy Roach is. Was at Duke for 4 years at Baylor. Now, like, he's one of the best guards in the country. So losing just someone of that caliber on any team is big. Nevertheless, a team that's already a little bit shorthanded. But we're starting to build this brotherhood that we have amongst each other. And when one brother goes down, you just got to play for him because he gave it all he can. Because, like, that play where he got hurt, that actually gave us a chance for Jay Nunn to hit the shot, and it gave us a chance to win the game, you know? So it sucks, but we just got to play for him.
Jason has obviously played some minutes, and we expect him to play tomorrow. So, and then from there, we have options, but obviously none of them have had minutes yet.
So the injuries thing. Let me start by saying this. Of course, this is not an ideal situation health-wise. They have been dealt some injuries. Scott Drew says it's like being down 2 quarterbacks. I think that's a bit far. But now not having Jeremy Roach for what could be a couple of games here, we don't really know. Not having him, obviously not having Langston Love still, and really not having kind of that depth at the big man position anyway. Like, it hurts. And Celestine's just coming back, right? So having that lack of depth in the Big 12, not through your own power, really stinks. But that said, I'm like, how much of this is injuries? Like, the team they put out there and the roster they had available to them on Sunday, that team should still beat TCU. Am I wrong? That team should still beat TCU.
No, you're not wrong. Especially
it's part of the story.
It's part of it. Yes. Is it the full issue? No, that's why I want somebody just to come out and say it, because it's so obvious to me, and I think it's obvious to other people too, that when you watch this team, something's not clicking. Like, how do you get out rebounded like that at home? Scott Drew has made it very clear. You don't lose at home. But then you also force 17 turnovers and somehow still get out rebounded 41-25, I think was that stat. Like, it doesn't make sense. How are you not having guys there? How are you not clicking on all cylinders? It just doesn't make sense, especially at this point in the season. That's why none of this is an overreaction, because it's not the fact that, okay, you're getting through the season, people are going to get hurt, they're going to get banged up, that's normal. It's the fact that the attitudes aren't changing and there isn't this shift that needs to happen in order to get to where you want to be at the end of the season.
Sample size is a big part of this. Like, after the Gonzaga game, I was like, you know what? That sucked. That really sucked. They lost by 40 and didn't show a lot of effort, but it's game 1, and I like this team a lot. Now we're talking the end of January. Like, this is a good enough sample size. You face good basketball teams. You're into conference play here. You're almost halfway through it. It's like this things need to start changing. This can't be like, just give it a couple more weeks. And you talked about Norchad earlier in the show. When he has a bad game or a tough game on the boards, that's what you saw on Sunday. Like they barely give themselves a chance to win the game when he's getting bodied up and Uday has a big game. Norchad only brings down 5 rebounds and bang, you're out rebounded by 16. Like there's just not much that this team can do when they're not dominating the boards battle.
Or when you're missing your free throws.
That too. Golly.
That was brutal.
This is every year. Every year. I think they got into the top 5 of the Big 12 eventually last year in their free throw shooting. But every year that's an issue. And I don't understand it because it's really not a skill thing. It's all these guys can shoot free throws. They're playing Division I college basketball. Okay. It's not a skill thing. It becomes a mental thing. And yet every single year for the past 4 or 5 years, let's say, they've struggled with it. And it obviously really came back to bite them last year in the NCAA tournament. But that is something I can never get over. I'm like, how is that still the issue or an issue, I should say. But looking at kind of the problems here, you said it doesn't look like they're clicking. I can't agree more. Like there's talent there, but they're not playing as a cohesive unit. They're not playing as a team, which has led me to a lot of thinking the past couple of days. Let me be very clear about this. This is from my own sick, twisted brain. Okay. This is not from a source. This is not any kind of reporting. I don't know anything about what's going on in that locker room that you know of. But it feels like there's something wrong within those walls. And I don't know if it's a rogue player who's supposed to be a leader. I don't know if it's just coaches trying to feel themselves out still because it's still a new coaching staff. I don't know. But for this season, at least, like growing pains, we should be over by Martin Luther King Day. And we're not. And it leads me to believe that there's something, like you said, something more going on here. And this is a testament to Scott Drew, is that we probably will never find out. Like because they'll keep it in-house and chances are they'll improve on it because that's what Scott Drew has done over his career. But there's something just not adding up. And that's where you get to the point where they don't look dreadful. Teams aren't going to, or other fans aren't going to watch this team and be like, that team sucks. But the more we go along with this, it's like, well, it's not a tournament team though. Yeah. One of the 68 best teams in the country, kind of how that works. And it's got to change right away. And I'll leave you with this in this segment because the thing I kind of fear, we talked about kind of like, was that the worst loss of the season? Was that rock bottom? And you said, for now it is. And what I really fear here, Sydney, is these next 3 games, including tonight against Kansas State, those are winnable games.
They are. Like
very, right? I know Utah is playing better basketball and both that and BYU are on the road, but neither of those 3 teams ahead of you in the schedule are tournament teams right now. They're very winnable. So hopefully Sunday was rock bottom, because if they lose 2 of these games or look really bad in one of them, that's going to be rock bottom. Is that a reasonable fear right now? Is that these games are actually winnable?
It is a reasonable fear because that shouldn't be what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And, I think I keep mentioning VJ. He seems to be one of the only guys that's showing his visible frustration. He's not using words like, yeah, we got to get back to it. He's saying this is mandatory. We have to do this. We cannot just keep going out there and hoping for the best. And Coach Scott Drew had said after the TCU game, we played not to lose. We didn't play to win. We played not to lose. There's got to be that shift to happen because you should not be playing to not lose. You need to be playing to win, especially when it's teams you should be beating.
Yeah. And we've seen it a lot this year and last year, especially offensively, of kind of what you just said. Like it's a soccer game, playing not to lose, playing keep away. And it's bit them a lot. Let's talk a little bit of football. Let's transition here. A little fun football, actually, where Baylor football meets the big screen. That's coming up next on your favorite program. Of course, that's Locked On Baylor. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace is the leading virtual therapy provider, and it makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and most importantly, affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. And it's convenient. You can have some sessions from the comfort of your own home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. As a listener of Locked On Baylor, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter the promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter the promo code SPACE80 and get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege, promo code SPACE80. All right, rounding things out, Locked On Baylor, Sydney Wicker, KCEN, Channel 6 Sports. Let me ask you this, Sydney. You already know the answer of this, of what we're going to talk about in a second. But before I gave you the prompt, or gave you the answer, I guess, of who would play Dave Aranda in a movie, did you have any thoughts as to who, like what actor you were going to pick?
Now that I know the answer, it's so hard to
very tough.
pick somebody else.
Because I'll admit I didn't have anyone.
I literally can't think. I would have had a thought about that before you sent me the answer.
That means this is just perfect, because this is a thread that comes from, I need to give credit to this person, but we've seen ones of the SEC coaches that are, or who they would be played by in a movie thanks to AI. I guess that's Grok. This is from Central Texas. This is what happens when you work for ESPN Central Texas. It's CT ESPN Utah on Twitter, and they do a thread of the Big 12 coaches and who would play them in a movie. So without any further ado, I couldn't have thought of anyone else. Here's what we got if you're watching on YouTube for Dave Aranda at Baylor. Keegan-Michael Key. I can see it. I can see the vision. Sydney, do you see this vision?
How can you not? This picture alone, it makes me laugh because it looks like Dave Aranda's brother.
It does. It does. And what's funny is obviously Keegan-Michael Key does a lot of the James Franklin stuff, but he might fit in with Dave Aranda just as well.
Totally fits in with Dave Aranda. The only thing is he is just so funny, and it takes a lot to get Dave's personality out of him. Like, he's really going to have to nail the seriousness if he were to ever play Dave Aranda, because it takes a bit to crack Dave. So, and
he's also like Keegan-Michael Key get pretty bombastic. You know what I mean? I remember the substitute
teacher.
Can I not talk? Like, what is this? The substitute teacher sketch was what I was trying to say. A.A. Ron.
One of the best, by the way, that never gets old.
Like Dave Aranda, I know we hear that he yells, but he doesn't. I can't imagine him screaming like that.
No, me either.
I do want to. Can I rapid fire through some of the rest of these?
Yes, please.
And I want your reactions as to like, oh yeah, I can see that.
I don't know if there's anybody not fitting.
Oh, damn it.
I know. I do have a couple, but
Hugh Jackman as Kyle Whittingham.
That one actually, I feel like
it's kind of off.
That one's a little off. Yeah, I will say that one.
They're both good-looking men for their age. They're both silver foxes, but they just don't like. It's not, the facial structure is not the same. Denzel Washington as Deion Sanders.
I love that one. So fitting.
I think he might be old. I think he might be too old.
No,
but no, I think it fits with the beard, and they have the picture with the beard. I could see.
I know it looks too good. He looks good.
And Denzel Washington does a good job playing football coaches.
Yeah, I think he could crush it.
I don't know who Sean Bean is, but he's playing Mike Gundy.
He looks like he could be his brother too.
as someone I live with is trying to tell me while I'm recording a podcast. Thank you. Kevin James as Kenny Dillingham.
I love it.
No, come on. This is the worst one.
No, I think.
I mean, by now, Kevin James doesn't have to look like the football coach he's playing after he did Sean Payton, I guess. Doesn't have to. It's not a requirement.
I just think like what a character he is. I feel like it's fitting.
Okay.
I do.
The Rock, Dwayne Johnson to some of us as Kalani Sitake.
I don't know about that one.
He's a little bit more rocky than Kalani Sitake. I could see it. But then, it's a bit of a stretch.
It's a bit of a stretch.
Bill Paxton playing Brett Brennan.
I actually like that one.
I think that works pretty well.
Yeah.
And we have ours. Yeah. Oscar Isaac, Matt Campbell.
That one also a little bit of a stretch to me.
Bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
John C. McGinley as Chris Kleiman.
I kind of like it.
I think he'll fit a vibe too. I think he'll fit a good vibe, the way that Keegan-Michael Key probably doesn't for Dave Aranda.
Yeah, it's one of those where you're like, okay, I could see it. You know, you just gotta have to see it play out.
We'll give him a read. Lance Leipold, played by John Lithgow. Lance Leipold is no spring chicken here. He's 60. John Lithgow is turning 80 this year. That might be a stretch for me. 80. He's 20 years old.
Age is just a number. Come on.
Joey McGuire. This one kind of threw me. Kelsey Grammer as Joey McGuire. I don't think the look is quite there to begin with, but also like having Fraser Crane playing Joey McGuire is just asinine to me. It's insane. I can't see it. John Voight.
Perfect.
Coach Bud Kilmer, now Coach Willie Fritz. I think this is a pretty good one here. He is also quite a bit older than Willie Fritz. I want to say he's pushing 80 as well. But I think that one works. Bill Pullman, who I also don't know, as Rich Rod. Sure.
Yeah, just kind of like whatever about it.
I got nothing much to it. God, there's so many teams in this conference now.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, how many more do you have?
Gary Sinise as Scott Satterfield of Cincinnati. I think that one works really well.
It's the freaking visor, like that whole look. Here for
hot take. We have the penultimate one here. I think this might be the best comparison.
I agree.
Scott Frost of UCF, played by Chris Pratt.
Love.
Like, I could see that in a second. Scott Frost has a bit more of kind of that Irish, like scrunched up, almost freckly face. But I think that is a natural progression to the big screen by being played by Chris Pratt. TCU. Oof, that's tough. Last one. Sonny Dykes being played by John Goodman. Oh, that's tough. The facial and like the hair is not that bad, but I guess John Goodman slimmed down now. Maybe I shouldn't, but that seems a little rough on Sonny, because this is a beef I have. We're going over time here, but John Goodman playing Babe Ruth, I thought was so disrespectful.
Really?
Because he was like 350 pounds in 94. Babe Ruth is not actually that big. He was big by those standards, and he had a belly, but he had like these little chicken legs. And here's John Goodman playing 20-year-old Babe Ruth. He could double as a friggin' nose tackle, and he's playing Babe Ruth, man. I was like, man, I feel for the Babe there. That's tough. Oh, I think Chris Pratt's the best one there. And honestly, Michael Key as Dave Aranda has got to be in the top.
I was going to say, those are the top two. Those two right there. Man. So good. By the way, real quick, who would play you in a movie? Oh, God. I know my answer, I think.
Dude, I honestly have no idea. I don't see myself enough, even though I see myself on this damn show every day. You have an answer for me or an answer for you?
No, I have an answer for me. I don't know for you. Sorry.
Because I might need an answer for me. I don't know.
Well, it's hard for
me. Who would play me in a movie?
He's asking from his live audience.
Ken Jennings.
He's snarky. He knows a lot of Jack. He looks like
he's snarky. That's the first.
Anyway, Young Jack Nicholson. That's a better answer. That's a better answer. All right.
I like that answer better.
That is terrific. That is terrific. Okay, Sydney, before we get out of here, who's playing Sydney Wicker?
I feel like maybe Lily Collins.
That I could definitely see.
And if Kate Hudson would go brunette, I would love Kate Hudson to play me in a movie.
Man, AI could make a mashup of both. That would be great.
I think so. That would be great.
I could
Kate
definitely
Hudson, I
see
think
Lily
her and I
Collins.
have similar personalities, so I think she would like nail my personality.
If any of you are still watching or listening, please let us know who should play these coaches in a movie or who should play us in a movie. Drop that down in the comments below on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. And then you can find us wherever you get your podcasts because that helps us out even more. Sydney Wicker of Channel 6 will be back on Wicker Wednesday next Wednesday. We're back on the schedule.
We're locked on and locked in. We got
fully
you.
in here. Fully in here. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll see you later today on Locked On Baylor.